Welcome to the Attractions Group Podcast, Episode 7. And boy, do we have a special one for you today. We've got our own very special first special guest. So that's very exciting. And we've got some news and information. I'm joined, as always, with my friend and colleague, Don Helbig. Don, how's it going today?
It's going well. Episode 7, here we go.
I know.
We're getting there now.
Yeah, and so we haven't been on the air for almost 2 weeks now, so we do apologize once again for the delay. But I don't want to make excuses, but Don went somewhere pretty special. Don, where did you go last weekend? You went to Dollywood. I'll spoil that. But where else did you go? Oh my gosh.
I went to Buc-ee's.
Buc-ee's, the Disney World of gas stations. So the Buc-ee's, I believe you went to the one in Richmond, Kentucky, right?
I did. You know if you've seen the movie Field of Dreams and you see, like at the end, if you build it, they will come and you see all the cars going down the road to go into this place. I mean, it was just like that. I wish I had the camera rolling because there were hundreds of cars coming off the interstate just to go to Buc-ee's.
Yeah, I believe that they have 100 gas pumps, actually. That's one of their big gimmick things. 120?
120, I counted.
Oh, well, you counted all of them. Yeah, and then, so did you try any of the food? Because their food is actually exceptional, especially for a gas station.
I did. In addition to the treats, yes, the sandwiches, had to make sure that, I tried them. So we got some sandwiches on the way down. You mentioned we went to Tennessee, Dollywood. And then also on the way back, picked up some sandwiches again, too.
Wow, you made 2 trips to Buc-ee's. I couldn't talk my girlfriend into stopping there on the way back because she said, quote unquote, this place is stupid. So if you ever find somebody with an attitude like hers, they're probably related to her because how can you not love it? What was your favorite food item?
Everybody always, before I went there, everyone said, you got to try the barbecue brisket sandwich. I mean, it's outstanding. But for me, the Club Melt was just a little bit better than the barbecue brisket. So that would be my favorite sandwich.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we always forget to do this at the top of the program. So I want to go ahead and remind everybody that they can follow us on Twitter at attractions_GRP. That's a great way to communicate with us. If you have any questions you want us to address on the show, any show ideas, any comments, thoughts, hate mail for Don. I mean, we're taking anything. Look for us on YouTube. Don, you look like you're about to defend yourself. I was just kidding.
No. What I'm thinking here is, you and I have talked about, doing some live podcast, and the best way that's going to work is to have some audience participation. And the best way for us to interact with our guests while we're live is going to be on Twitter. So make sure that you follow us. And if we get up to 100 followers within the next, say, 4 or 5 days, I've just got a treasure trove of all this amusement park memorabilia. I'll pull something out of that, and we'll randomly choose somebody that's going to win an item.
Okay, so if we reach 100 users by, I'm guessing that would be
100 followers on Twitter.
100 Twitter followers. Sorry, I don't tweet that well. By, you want to say Wednesday? Then we'll do some sort of contest for something kind of interesting.
Yeah. Let's go for next Wednesday before our next podcast. If we're over 100 followers, I will, just pull something randomly out of my treasure trove of amusement park, theme park memorabilia, and we'll pick a winner.
That sounds fantastic. Well, as always, you can also look for us on YouTube. Look for the Attractions Group Podcast, and you'll be able to find full episodes as well as clips there. We wanted to get as many YouTube subscribers as possible, because we want to start going live and doing live things with you, and then we can have a chat and we can interact. One of the ideas we threw around is having a live broadcast for our reactions to the Golden Ticket Awards coming up here in a couple weeks. So got a ways to go to make it worth everybody's time, but we'd love for you to do that. So look for the Attractions Group on YouTube and just search for the Attractions Group Podcast on any of your favorite podcast apps. Okay, we need to get down to business because we've got a very special friend here today. So I want to introduce everybody to Mr. David Detling. So David has been a friend and business partner of mine for about, is it more than 5 years now, David?
It's been, let's see, probably 2016. So maybe even before that. I don't know. It's been a while.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It's been a number of years.
So David and I met each other through Kings Island, of course. And we've partnered on many, many projects. And David, for matter of full disclosure, is actually the proprietor of the Attractions Group. And a lot of people have been asking about the Attractions Group and, what it does as opposed to just being the name of the podcast. So for those who are, not in tune with some of the inner workings of the industry, why don't you tell us about yourself and what the Attractions Group does?
All right. And first of all, let me just preface this by saying use the term special way too many times when you're alluding to your very special guest in the special podcast. My mantra is keep the expectations low, then known as disappointed. So that's...
I meant special as in you just learned how to color between the lines, but just giving you trouble, David. Old friends, so anyway, tell us about yourself.
Proprietor, I don't know if that's the correct term or not. I just didn't like owner. I didn't like CEO. I'm not a CEO of the Attractions Group. So as proprietor, I saw that on LinkedIn and thought, that looks good. I'll use that. Or spearhead, whatever it is. So as for what I do, it honestly, Ryan, it depends on the day. Sometimes it depends on the hour. The Attractions Group started as kind of a successor to another similar entity of amusements and attractions. And then around the time the pandemic happened, no one was transacting business. No one was doing anything. And the attraction industry as a whole went into hibernation and started with a networking site. And we have a networking site that has about 450 people on it. It's Attractions Network. We've done complimentary education sessions using named people in the industry. You may not recognize the name, but you definitely recognize their title. Joel Manby, who at one time was the CEO of Hirschen Family Enterprises and then on to SeaWorld. He did a set for us last year. Dan Cockrell, who did just about everything he could do at Disney before retiring at age 49 to go on this speaking circuit. He did a set for us. We've had different Disney Imagineers do education series, as well as Tim Murphy, who runs Boomers Parks primarily out west, and I believe they're down in Florida as well. So that's one of the arms of what the Attractions Group does. As my input to it, I love a themed attraction industry. I like a well thought out immersive experience, and I did a little bit more of that, more so before the pandemic set in. I haven't really got back into guest experience conversations much recently. But since about 2017, you were along in the beginning part of that, Ryan, doing consulting for interactive technologies for the theme.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Like I said, it really kind of depends on the day, but and sometimes hour.
Yeah. That's a we call those 1099s, right, David? When people they'll do work for the money, no matter what the job description is.
Yeah, David, technology is becoming more hand in hand with theme parks more and more each year. What are the benefits to guests where a park or a facility would work with you?
It's a kind of an anomaly because the themed attraction industry is probably, if you've ever been to an expo or been to the conventions that they have, it is some of the most creative, innovative, just entrepreneurial environments that you can imagine. But oddly enough, when it comes to interactive technologies, especially from a guest to screen or interaction, bureaucratic cities and mixed use facilities are actually leading the most of the innovation on that. It's not even the theme park industry. It's starting to catch on, but it's a relatively new technology. I think before the pandemic, it was starting to take on, but once 2020 hit, there's this thing, people didn't want people touching screens. Interactivity went away for a little bit. But my genesis to this came in 2016 with the whole concept of smart cities are starting to evolve. And when Ryan and I had a conversation with the company that is doing this, we started imagining what would a smart park look like. And as far as the benefits of working with this, is there's a visual aspect to this, but it's also what most management assumes that this is with, or that's the only thing it does. And for the most part, the first generation iteration of this technology, that was about it. It was these giant screens around parks that had done running PowerPoint slides. And now the technology has changed. And though that is still part of it, there is a lot more to it. And ideally, it is something that's not standalone, but it interacts with web, app, and any touch point that may exist at a park.
That's awesome, David. No, go ahead.
No, from where it interacts with the guests in the park, it just connects all the touch points. It's not a standalone piece. It's not intended to be that way, though sometimes it is. But it's intended to complement the other touch points that are already in existence.
Cool. Yeah, so, obviously when we think digital screens, most people are going to think, well, if I want to monetize these, I got to put ads on them. So that's kind of a given. But besides putting ads on them, what are some other ways, like when they ask, like, where's the money? Because obviously, like, real estate is very valuable in the parks. So even like where a digital sign would be or a digital billboard or whatever, what are other ways you can monetize them besides just throwing ads on them?
The interesting thing about the units, especially where they are now, is you can put just about any kind of sensor you want on these. And a theme park or attraction will spend millions of dollars putting in a giant roller coaster or a big attraction with something that you can only assume what the ROI comes. People come and you judge it by how many. Don, you can correct me on all this, but if there's a giant line for the wait's an hour long, if it's 2 hours long, but on year 2 it's back a little bit, or after the attraction's been there for a while, it's walk on. But with the large park that a park that puts a large attraction in, sometimes the marketing department escapes the thought of people spend a lot more time in walking the pathways in the park or staying in line at the park rather than actually riding the ride. In the walkways, decision points where people come to a couple different major intersections within a park, as well as the line queues, are missed opportunities. And those are opportunities that the park can use to engage people, whether that's a screen in the line QR code and bounce back to the app or their web-based product. And but during that time, most parks, I would say 99% of the parks, concede that time to YouTube, to Instagram, to Snapchat, or I don't know if kids are going to still get on Roblox or not. But the space is 2022. People standing in line, they're going to own more, so they're going to interact with the environment around them. And so what these screens can do is bring engagement back to the park so that the park can gather those analytics. And those units can generate the analytics through touch analytics, people actually come up and interacting with them on the screen, vision analytics through sensors that can heat map and see where the concentration of people are, Wi-Fi if someone is connected to the Wi-Fi beacon that's within the unit, which let's be honest, a lot of the parks they are self-signal black holes, and mostly because the parks haven't contracted with maybe a cell phone provider to put a tower in the park. And also mobile. I know that a number of years ago, your question was, where's the show me the money at? I think it was 2017. Ryan and I were in a meeting with a person in a park down down south. I'm not going to name the name, but they're down south. And at that point, they had just completed a demographic study by hiring an agency. And I'll try to make this as quick as possible. They had hired an agency to come in. Actually, they interviewed a number of different companies to see who they wanted to do the demographic study, see where this next attraction was going to be based on their layout and the available space where it should be. And they spent 3 months interviewing a company, and the company prepared another 60 days to come in, so already up to 5 months. They did 2 months to do the study, and that would be site evaluation by overlooking, watching how people flowed, interviewing people, and then they came back and compiled their results for another month, and then presented their findings to the park to what they should do next. And this is a southern park, so they get the hurricanes on occasion. And by the time that from the time they wanted to start doing the study to the time they actually had the report in hand, which, by the way, is a dated report by the time they got it, was close to a year. Because of the sensors and the ability units have, and it's not just one company that does the units, any company can do this, the results and the demographics and the analytics are real time. So at least in this park, anything can invalidate the data that's in the report they just paid $600,000 for. Hurricane, another bad storm, downpours, civil unrest, any number of things could invalidate it.
Yeah, I mean, so David, not to interrupt you, but something that comes to mind is that I know that one of the partner companies that we had mentioned that when they put these, like the digital wayfinders in, not really malls, but more like lifestyle centers because they're outdoors, that the retail establishment, well, not the retail establishments, but the landlords were able to charge more for rent and have more appropriate stores based on the demographics. So they would have, if the wayfinders notice that women make a right-hand turn when they enter the lifestyle center, they can put Victoria's Secret there or whatever. So obviously that kind of stuff translates to parks. Would you agree with that?
Because there's more engagement with them.
Cool.
Yeah, right, David. Parks, they're often trying to drive everyone to their mobile app, leave that world of paper behind, with the regular park maps. So how would digital signage, those systems factor into that kind of a plan for a park where you're trying to get away from the paper and having everyone kind of go to the mobile app?
Well, it'd be something that would just be integrated. A lot of times places either have the app and it's a website's a standalone piece, Wayfinder units, which are a standalone piece, but ideally this would be something that'd be integrated, working hand in hand with it. The wayfinding units have a QR code on it. You scan the QR code, it bounces you right back to the app. Even today, most parks, I think it's fair to say, have an app. Everything from the monstrosity that is the My Disney experience, which used to, if you used it like they wanted you to, your phone is dead by noon. And then there's some that there's only one or two functions that people use on it. But it's something that would cause the parks obviously pay good money for an app to be developed, whether or not people use it or not. It's still something in 2022 you have to have. These units are something that is not intended to compete with an already existing technology, but to complement it, either by QR code or being through what's the word I'm thinking for? Alerts, not alerts.
Push notifications.
But there you go. That's it. Push notifications back to the units. And if implemented correctly, they drive traffic to an app or to existing structures, and vice versa, not compete with them.
Awesome. So David, what kind of content would you recommend that a park puts on these? Obviously, a map would be pretty self-evident in ads, but what other content would you recommend a park put on it if they were considering a project like this?
If I were talking to a park executive at the moment, one of the first things I'd do is if they're in the marketing or operations or whatever their role would be, I'd tell them just someday take a different route to the office. And from the time you get in the car to the time you walk in the park, experience it as someone who's never been there before. When you drive through the parking area, drive to your parking spot, get to the gate. What's your employee interaction? Are there weeds around the area up front? Do the glasses have smudges on them? And as you go through the park, is there vomit dust still in the line queues? What's the flow of the park? Really, in this transitions from one area to the next, and then come back and see, okay, as a first-time guest, what would I need to find out, or what would be useful information for me? Is it an alert, or actually, and have the team do it as well, and then meet back and storyboard what that experience should look like, and what sort of information would a guest want? Is it alerts, weather, ride wait times, show times, food options, directions, and one of the analytics that some of these sensors have is heat mapping. What areas of the park are congested? Can you pull that up and see where, okay, we want to go over this area, but it's really congested right now, let's go over here. So there's just a number of different things that I could say would be relevant to a park, but honestly, every park is different. It's like a city that has a different population every day. So what would be important to this group today might not be as important tomorrow. And the genius of these things is that they can be updated on a dime. You can push notifications out. If you have, I believe it was I forget what year it was, probably very early. There was a park that had installed one of these, and they did push notifications out. And I believe there's some area of the park that had an abundance of food ordered, and they had a big storm come through the week before, and their attendance was way down, and they had a lot of this expensive food that was either they need to get rid of or was going to go bad, and they used a unit to push notifications out to people that, hey, the burger basket, whatever it is $2 off today. You go to this kiosk, and they ran, even though $2 off on the $20 park meal was hardly that much. It's still the perceived value of it caused people to go do that, and they ran out of their supply. So it's also just something that the marketing department can use, operations can use it, and just use it to the advantage. It takes creativity to figure out which function you want it to serve that day.
Okay, now on the topic of content, who would manage the content if they were to work with you and put in the signage? Would it be the park? Would there be a third party that would do all this? So how do you keep on top of it and manage it?
Don, that depends upon the venue and quite frankly the software developer. There's a number of different developers that do these, different hardware providers. Some use LG, some use Samsung, and some use other types of screens. So there's a lot of factors that depends on. I have talked to different software providers in the last couple weeks and months, and there are some, it's their proprietary software. They have fingerprints on it. They've invested a lot of money in developing it, and they obviously don't want the end user touching it. And I understand that they've invested all that money. They don't want to give people the key to the back door. So in that instance, obviously the software developer would have people on their staff, a team of people that would manage that for that. The park would reach out and say, hey, we need this updated. Can you do this? And we need this updated over here. The company that we're partnered with, they have a customized content management system. And so you can either contract them to do that, or it is something you can do completely independent. You can update things on the fly. You can make updates per screen, and that doesn't have to necessarily be, with the software developer, but that can be done on site. And most of all maintenance issues can be remoted in through cloud reporting if something were to happen.
Yeah, so you mentioned that your current partner has its own interface and stuff. I've actually done a lot of work with like bright sign players and stuff like that, which are right now the industry standard. And if you sit down and you spend several days to learn the software, it's doable. But it's not something you can sit down in front of and just figure out on your own. You've got to know. What's the back-end interface like for the software that you use?
Well, I'm going to relay a story that I know, Ryan, you and I had talked about. To really speak to what you just said, the complexity of the back end. I did with the content management system. This one's that I work with, and there's others out there, but the one that I work with is developed by a company based in Cincinnati, or I guess the greater Cincinnati area. It's called RoveIQ, and theirs is pretty easy. I was conducting a demo at the offices for IAPA in Orlando back at the end of June, and I had never laid eyes on their content management system. I was doing a pretty big presentation now it was for a project that they had never done before, so they're doing they do custom work, and it ended up being done very well. Mm-hmm. But 90 minutes prior to the meeting, I'd never laid eyes on the dashboard or the flow of it at all. And I tell people I sit at the Starbucks across the street from SeaWorld, which I'd meet people that I know in Orlando. That's just an easy place to find. And I'm sitting there kind of twiddling my thumbs thinking, okay, it's 90 minutes. How am I going to do this? And literally the link came, and I'd never laid eyes on it before. The honest truth, I'd never seen the back end that I was going to be demoing. And I still had to drive to the meeting. So with 90 minutes left, I was able to sort through, self-teach myself the dashboard, get things uploaded like they needed to be. I even messed up the first time and had to go back, delete everything and start over, and was able to do that, figure it all out enough that I could go into an office for the people at the IAPA offices to step them through it, how it worked, and sort of do a real broad-based teaching of how the content management system worked. So there's some that may be complex, but theirs is really intuitive and very user-friendly.
So you were able to, yeah. I'm sorry, but I'm just following up. But you're able to, like, your testament is that you were able to just sit down in front of the software and use it, right? Like, so it wasn't like it was a learning curve. Awesome. Sorry, Don. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. All right, David, one of the things that comes to mind for me when I think about outdoor signage, one of the problems is that when the sun hits it, the screen almost looks black. How do you overcome that?
The first generation screens were horrible. Most of them they weren't commercial screens that were meant for that. So that was kind of an endemic problem where these rolled out pretty quickly at first. And then when people saw them, like, oh, we're replacing these screens all the time, you can't see them. They got burnt pixels. Some are still out there in a number of different parks that are still trying to kick that can along and replacing the screens at will. I would say a couple things. Number one, the screen technology has changed dramatically, changed to withstand it. There's better fans and ventilation and structure on the inside to be able to withstand harsh conditions. The company that we partnered with guarantees their brightness for 10 years. Of course, if it's maintained properly. We had a test unit installed at, shall we say, a large retail area of a themed area of Orlando. Back in, let's see, when we installed it, we requested from their staff, we want the harshest environment that you can place this thing, because it's going to be a test unit. Our intent was not to just put a test unit in there, but we wanted ideally hundreds of these throughout the resort area. We wanted the harshest area, most direct sun. It's double-sided, so we want to get in the morning and the afternoon. We want nothing shielded from rain, nothing shielded from wind. We want as much exposure to this as possible. And that was at the end of January 2020. Less than 2 months later, the world changed. Now the warranty of this, of the brightness, is contingent upon proper maintenance. Now, I will say this is no one's fault. This is just how everything happened back in 2020. This venue did not have a single person on property in 60 days, or for 60 days. So can you guess what happened? They shut all the power off. The screens weren't working, the fans weren't running. So there's nothing but a dead screen and Florida sun beating on it for 60 days. And which is hardly the way that they're supposed to be maintained. And it's not something that is anyone's fault. I can imagine that their upper management would be walking through in the middle of April when there's no one on the property, weeks before or weeks after. Why are these screens on? So it's going to be something, the plug is going to be pulled. That was early first quarter 2020. My family and I were down at that same venue back at the end of June, and I snapped a picture of it. As best I can tell, and I'm not in on all the conversations, but as far as I know, there's been little or no maintenance done to this unit, and it's still just as bright today as it was the day we plugged it in. And that's after 3 years of Florida sun, wind, rain. I think there might have even been a hurricane or a tropical storm blow through in that time. And it went 60 days of even worse environment when nothing was operating like it should. So that, to answer your question, that I would say the technology has improved greatly, and the sun hits it all the time in Florida, and at least for the first half of the day. Then it rains the rest of it, but it is just as bright today as it was when it was plugged in.
All right.
Now, to clarify, you when the sun's hitting it directly, you can still see it then, right? Too, it's got more nits in the sun or whatever. Awesome.
Yeah, and there's sensors in there that it'll change the brightness throughout the day, so it's very bright during the day, so it doesn't blind people at night when you walk by it.
Awesome, cool. Well, I mean, not entirely changing gears, but to change gears. We know some of the content that can be put on the screens and how you can message to the people in your park. But tell me more about this. How you can do like crowd control and safety measures using digital wayfinding screens.
This is where the integration with the systems already present in the park come into play, because they're essential to it. It's not something you can operate separately. It's just to make all the touch points connected. It can be used as a Wi-Fi beacon. And like I said earlier, that most places are a black hole for cell signals. I remember we had talked to a park, Ryan, you in Florida, a number of years ago. Someone in management at the park, he wasn't the general manager, but I forget what his title was, but he said he didn't use the Wi-Fi that day because someone else must have been using it. And so it's using these as a Wi-Fi beacon would be able to get a signal out there so that if you do need to have an alert out there, some things happens to be, I hate to say it, but active shooter. You can alert people through the screen, or I don't think that's happened in the park yet, so I don't want to say anything that I shouldn't on that. But through geofencing, you can put alerts that are specific to specific regions of the park that would be relevant for people there. If there's someone who had passed out and there needs to be medical people come through to clear paths for it. Or if a storm's coming through, you can put a weather channel or whatever screen map up there so people can see what's coming their way. Because a lot of times in the summer, storms come out of nowhere, especially in a hot and humid place like Florida. It can be sunny one minute and literally 20 seconds later, you're getting dumped on. So in the different messaging, it can be anything from just alerts. Maybe people want to sponsor a message for a celebration or a birthday. But there can be a number of different things on there, missing child alerts, any number of things, because these are some things that can be managed by the local staff, people that are in the park. It can get messages out right away quickly to people that would be relevant, that would be reading at that moment. And that's a nice thing, just an updated technology. It's much more up to the minute, or even up to the second if it needs to be.
All right, David, Ryan and I, we've discussed on a previous podcast, there's a trend in the industry about going cashless. How do your projects fit into that type of plan?
There's a number of different ways I could answer that, because out of the one side of my mouth, I'd say that they would need to. Most parks want the transaction time, and when I say transaction time, I don't mean purchase. It's just the time that people come up, interact with the screen, and then get their information and go. They want the transaction time to be limited so that it's freed up for the next person to come up. But there's all sorts of kiosks in use in different places that also use them as point of sale systems. Programs can be written into them to interact with an app. But the intent is usually to keep the guest transaction time minimal so people can come and go. But there's also kiosks that have, with the cameras on it, they can take an image of a person or persons with a background of the park, and if they have the app or part of their pass that has pictures for the season or whatever the thing may be or whatever it's called, they can scan their QR and it goes directly to their account. You can do point of sale, and that can be integrated in these, but I would say that at least from the standpoint of guest experience, it's probably not something that you'd want people doing, because if you ever went to a fast food place that has kiosks for people to order at, because I use these things all the time and work around them, it takes me forever to order out them at a fast food place, and I usually just give up and go to the counter anyway. But so they can be used that way. There's some places that would want for them to be used that way, but for the most part, I would say guest experience wise, it wouldn't go to that function.
All right,
that's some great information, David. Hey, so we've talked. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that comes to mind that I know that you and I had previously discussed with one of your suppliers was that, it's not so much you walk up to the kiosk and you buy a ticket and it prints out a ticket. That's just not the way things are done anymore. But nowadays it's kind of like, oh, you want to go to the concert tonight? Scan this QR code and you can buy it. So that's the sort of thing that I personally I have in mind. But you've presented some fantastic ideas as well. So
integrate it with Open Table, I believe, an app that Open Table has. Yeah. That if there's a restaurant on site that takes reservations, you can go in and plug in your reservation and do it at the kiosk. Yeah,
super convenient. And I suppose it could say like, oh, this restaurant has this wait time, but this has this wait time. So it's almost like advertising. So your company, obviously the Attractions Group, which is, it's a conglomerate of different industry people that do different things. So you've talked about digital signage and mobile apps and how you can go upward. But can you just kind of lay out some of the technology that's available that the average person or park operator may not know about. You mentioned things like heat mapping, crowd control, stuff like that, demographics. Can you just kind of give us like a blurb on different things that these things can do that people may not have thought that they could do?
Analytics. I come from an analytic background. I love analytics. If the number of analytics that these generate would have been available to me when I was working as a marketing director, I'd probably still be working it, because you can get these numbers in real time and just mess with them every day and try to figure out what works, what doesn't work, test this, do an A/B test over here. There's just a number of the things that the analytics just with the heat mapping. I can't stress how much I love the analytics that these generate, because they're completely useful to make database decisions. So heat map signatures, geofencing, they can have different messages get pushed out depending on where you're at in the park. If you have 5 of them in the park, all 5 of them can be doing different functions or doing different messages. There's also, now this is not something that we've gotten into. It's not been any project I've done or that the company that I'm working with has done that I'm aware of. They may have, but I know it's out there. There's called way to get to or way to get from technology, which it can track whatever the IP is on a cell phone, not people, not names, but it can tell where that signature started the day and what path they took to get to the park. Now, like I said, I've never consulted one that has done this, and I don't believe the company that I work with has either. But if you can imagine that, we see random billboards for parks along interstates, regardless of what community you're in. And the marketing department, they had that kind of information where the concentration of the vehicles are coming to their park. That would have great information to figure out where to place the billboards at. And then integration with app. Most people, like I said, they view the app and these units as 2 separate things, but if implemented properly, both should feed off of each other. And then web-based. Some places have web-based map, and each handheld device that are operating will still have the same experience on your handheld as it does on the screen, which is really nice. So you can have the mapping, the options, and the whatever buttons that you see on the screen in front of you would be through QR use pulled up on the cell phone as well.
Yeah, David, I'm a lot like you with analytics. I just love looking at analytics all day long, and using that information, to your advantage, to be better at what you do. So that's great to hear that all that information would be available for you. David, we know that you have some exciting news to share about the IAPA convention that's coming up this November. So what can you tell us? Yeah, what can you tell us?
Right now, the plan is to have this podcast, is if I'm correct, to at least broadcast live from there at least once, maybe twice. We'll have special guests planned to be interviewed. There's some that I know are going to be there and have agreed that they will be interviewed. However, you never know who's going to show up there. I think it was a number of years ago. Ryan, I think you were probably there, but some 6', 10-foot guy was walking around yellow and red and had boots on and had an entourage following him around.
He gave me a leg drop, if you want another clue.
Drop on you. Don't know if anyone like a Hulk Hogan would ever come over and be part of the interview. That'd be huge if they did. But I say that to say you never know who's going to you're going to bump into there. Certainly would have never expected to see someone like a Hulk Hogan walking through IAPA. But I guess there's his beach shop would have been looking for merchandise there. But you never know. Last year at the booth, we had live interviews going on. It wasn't, obviously, the attraction group wasn't doing it, but we had different interviews with a person who was a former vice president of Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Hollywood Studios, and as well as a person who was executive vice president over the Disney World properties in Florida. And we had a number of different people on iDrive that did interviews. So we plan to do some of that again. I don't know if any of those people will return, but there are planned interviews, and then again, the people walking by that we grab and make them do an interview. So I think those are, as far as I can tell, there's going to be some other things coming up that I can't share right now that are still in development, but those are some things that are coming up. And I remember IAPA was 10 months ago, then it was 7 months ago, and now it's, I think we're under 90 days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right around the corner. But sounds like a lot
Around
of
90
fun.
days.
Yeah, a lot of fun. It'll be interesting, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, as you guys know way better than me, time definitely passes faster as you age into the elderly age. But all right, so David, just to summarize, then this is my takeaway from kind of what we discussed. But digital wayfinders, a lot more to them than people might think, especially on the surface. Lots of revenue generating opportunities, lots of analytic and learning, and being able to keep the guest informed. So all of that's really good. So you manage the site sort of project. So you do end to end as far as getting everything together and setting the client, which would be the park or the venue, up with these units and teach them how to do it and so on. So if anyone's interested at this point, maybe that wants a preliminary conversation before IAPA, where can you be reached?
A number of different ways. Before I mention that, I'd like to vision this as this is a sandbox. It's not a product that you're sticking out there that you have to figure out how to manage. It's a tool, and it's a sandbox that has any number of different features to it that they're there for the taking. You just need to activate them. So there's a number of different ways you can contact us. The website is theattractionsgroup.com, spelled out, all lowercase. We have a site on LinkedIn, obviously a company page, and then we have a networking page, as well as a site that goes with that. Has one of the newer designations. It's at www.attractions.network. It's not attractionsnetwork.com. It's the dot is in between the two words. So those are all the different ways. We have a YouTube channel out there. We have, of course, the social media feeds that this podcast has. And I believe that just about everything has a way to contact someone.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast, David. It's
I appreciate you having me.
Awesome. Well, thank you for for your partnership over the past 6 or 7 years and your friendship, and thank you so much for being on. We'll definitely have you on again, don't you think, Don?
Oh, absolutely. And David, you will always be known as our first ever guest on the Attractions Group podcast.
Wow.
Yeah, you'll be
great. And maybe next time you'll tell me about the dress code before getting on here. I'm the only one without the flower shirt.
In the Attractions Group office, Thursday is Hawaiian Shirt Day. You should know this. You get the memos. But
I didn't get the memo on this one.
Awesome. Well,
so if we do this on Wednesday, what's Wednesday?
Wednesday is cowboy hats.
Big bucket hat or just a
white brim? You follow your heart. Monday is Bucky's T-shirt day. Tuesday is sleeveless shirt day. All right, Don. Well, it's time for one of our favorite segments of the show, and that's when we talk about the latest news, information, patents, and so on in the theme park industry. And that's a little segment we like to call...
All right, Ryan, we're going to start out the Orange County Register. They're reporting magic bands. They're coming to Disneyland. And this is part of the introduction into the next generation of the wearable tech wristbands at the Walt Disney World Resort. Disney announced that it would be bringing the new Magic Band Plus devices to the Disneyland Resort later this year. Ryan, is this going to be a hit with the Disneyland crowd?
Well, Don, I mean that's easy to answer because they did it on a large scale at Disney World, and they would not have expanded it to another park if they weren't really confident that it was going to be successful. I think it's brilliant. You have a lot of experience with Disney World with the Magic Bands. What are your thoughts? Do you think it's convenient or confusing or what?
I think it's convenient. It's very useful. I think in time, it's going to be well accepted there. But they do have that base of Disneyland fans, and anytime there's any kind of change whatsoever to how they're doing things, there's always a little bit of uproar about it. But I think it's going to be a hit.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think that there's so much that can be done. We discuss this every show about magic bands and cell phones and stuff like that. And I think that the more you can integrate technology, the better. This isn't a screen that distracts you from the from what's going on around you and from the park. It actually integrates with the park. It can be a declining cash balance. It can get you into your room. It can do your fast pass. I think it's everything. So I would say that if I had to guess, I would say thumbs up for Disneyland. It'll take a while. You're right, but I think that it'll be a smash hit. Do you agree?
Yeah, it'll be a good thing moving forward.
Awesome. Cool. Now on to story number 2. And this one is, we're going to attribute this to Dollywood a little bit, but Dollywood is set at the time of this recording to announce their new attraction tomorrow, which is presumably going to be in Wildwood Grove. And they've been doing a bunch of teasers with bears and stuff. So what I wanted to do with this is I wanted to pose this question for you, Don. Teaser campaigns and stuff like that all lead to like backstories with rides. It's becoming more and more prevalent. I know that Orion has Area 72 and the whole story behind it, and there's the Legend of the Beast, and then Disney has it for everything. All their IPs are based off of movies. Does that even matter, or is that more for the initial marketing?
I think story matters in great. It enhances the guest experience. It allows you to use your imagination. It engages you better when there's a story that's going into the attraction. It's not just a ride, that there is that backstory to it.
I tend to agree. I think that there's a lot of people that get hung up on theming, and in a lot of cases they're unfairly comparing what a Six Flags would do with what a Disney would do. But to have the story and to have the effort there, I think it goes a long way. I mean, would you agree with that?
No, I mean, it really does. When I was growing up going to the parks, it was just a ride. There wasn't any type of backstory tied into anything. So you started to see that, over the last 15, 20 years, where a lot of things are story-driven attractions. And I think it really adds a lot to these attractions. So by the time you get to the ride, you're still really immersed in the story. You understand, a little bit behind the name and those kind of things. So, I love to see a great story-driven attraction. I think it's, it really matters.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I think the theme matters. I think you're right. I think it's immersive. It gives you a reason to be there because, you get into Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 if you start dropping rides everywhere without any kind of theming. So Dollywood always is spot on for almost everything they do. I'm sure this is going to be a wonderful attraction. I'm really looking forward to seeing what it ends up being. All right. So, story...
All right, moving on to story number 3, right?
Yes.
DisneyDining.com, among the outlets that are reporting that Walt Disney World may have a name change coming up. Right now it's just in that rumor stage, but renaming Walt Disney World to either Disney World, 2 different words there, or Disney World, 1 word, like Disneyland, which would leave Walt's namesake out of the park. Do you think that matters?
I think that from a guest standpoint, typically they call it Disney World anyway. I know I do. But at the same time, I think that Walt himself, Walt Disney, had enough of a contribution to the park itself that, Roy changed the name from just Disney World to Walt Disney World in honor of his, recently passed brother who never got to see the park open. And I personally think that should carry on the legacy. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I'm like you. I always referred to it as Disney World whenever I was going to go there. I'd post something on social. I'm at Disney World. But at the same time, the image in my head when I think of Disney World, the logo, it has Walt in it. So it's woven into the fabric of that logo that they've had forever. So to me, yeah, it does kind of matter that his with it.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I don't think that they're going to sell one ticket or not sell a ticket based on this at all. I actually I don't really know what their thought process is. My only thought is that, like, there's always rumors of Walt Disney being some sort of bad man for one reason or another, and they're worried somebody would dig something up and it would be a black eye. I don't know if that's what they're thinking, but you can't separate Walt from the company. Everybody knows that Walt Disney is Walt Disney, so it would be pointless, and it would be, almost bowing down to something that hasn't really happened. But I think it would be a very expensive change, and I think it would be unnecessary unless there's something that you and I don't know, right?
Exactly on that. But to me, the first thing I think about when, you see stories like this that are starting to appear out in the different Central Florida news media outlets and the different blogs and things is, there's always that thing that, sometimes when something's not broke, you're trying to fix it. And that to me comes into this situation here where it's not broke calling it Walt Disney World. But who knows? I mean, again, to me, Disney World, that's what it's known as. That's what people refer to it as when they go. But I do think that you'd love to see his namesake remain as part of the park
I
name.
completely agree. Now, Don, this kind of plays into a lot of our conversation with David, but when we're talking about technology within the parks, let's talk about cell phones specifically. When I was looking for different news articles, for tonight's program, I got a lot of things about like this person was injured from a flying cell phone, and this new feature is coming to an app for a park. So it seems like there's two sides of this conversation, but there's also the factor of when somebody's nose is in their phone, it's taking them out of the moment in the park. Do you think cell phones are a convenience or an interference with your park experience?
It's both. I mean, it really is both. There's no, not leaning one way or the other on that. You do want that convenience of having, the cell phone with you. It's a way for the communication between a park and its guest, throughout the day. You're driving people to mobile apps, to leave that world of paper behind, as we talked about earlier with David. So I think when you really look at it, the good is going to outweigh the negative there, the convenience of it, versus that interference.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. As somebody that, I mean, cell phones became a thing when I was like a senior in high school, and then smartphones came in, 7 years later with the iPhone or ish. My cell phone is definitely integrated into my life. I would go as far as saying that I'm probably as addicted as anybody else that's, had one their whole lives. But I really do like how it can hedge your bets with the park. You can do the right wait times and stuff. All of this, if you guys want to look back at our previous podcast, we've got a thing where we discuss the perfect mobile app and how you can have the perfect situation. But I'm with you. I would say that the net outcome is positive with cell phones.
Guest, I'm using the app to navigate my way around the park, look at the right wait times. If they have mobile ordering, I'm doing it through the app. So it's become a part of that theme park experience for me, is that to have that convenience of having all that information on my device right there.
Awesome. Excellent.
Well, Ryan, Busch Gardens, they're going to have their beer fest. The dates are going to be August 12th to September 5th. It's just going to be weekends. The park guests are going to be able to savor seasonal favorites and brew-inspired dishes featuring the fall flavors. The festival, it blends the local Tampa Bay area craft scene with time-honored traditions to create a unique food and beer celebration.
Awesome. Yeah. My understanding is that this celebration will be at both Busch Park locations at Williamsburg and Tampa. So you've got experience with beer fests and stuff with different entertainment facilities. Do those usually go pretty well? I mean, I know that usually they repeat.
I look at it as when a park is having a coaster enthusiast event. There's the coaster enthusiast, and you're going to draw from outside of your typical area. On that given day, you're going to have people from more than 3 or 4 or 5 different states coming to your park. It could be 20, 30 different states that come when you have those enthusiast events. And the craft beer enthusiast, same way, that you're going to have a lot of guests come into your park when you do these kind of festivals that typically would not have come, and just like a coaster event where it's about camaraderie, and you're talking with different coaster enthusiasts about your favorite parks, your favorite rides, what you love about roller coasters. It's the same thing when you have a craft beer festival that, they go there to, hear from the different, breweries and try to learn as much as they can about these beers. They want to talk to other people about them, to share their experiences and that. So it's a unique event.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, we discussed this on the program, but I went to the Williamsburg Busch Gardens, and, beer is spelled, how do they spell it with their thing? Is it B-I-E-R? Yeah, so that's the German spelling. Well, their Germany section is the most impressive, I think, of that park. With their fest house is just incredible. That was just like one of the neatest things that I had seen. So I think that it would be a really immersive experience there. Tampa doesn't have the same kind of theme, but they also, what they do very well. So I think this could be like a really successful thing for them, especially with the fact that they're both touristy and kind of a local park. Because I feel like this will draw the locals and the regionals far more than, I'm going to fly down there from, Castle Ryan in Kentucky to Tampa to go to a beer fest. Don't you think?
Right. Yeah, I agree with you there with that. But that Tampa Bay craft beer scene, it's it's a big thing there. I have several friends that are craft beer fans, and they consider that one of the best areas in the country for craft beers.
Don, are you a craft beer fan?
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm going to be the traditionalist there with that. But no, I mean, but I know a lot of people, that are.
Yeah, I do too. It seems like most craft beer enthusiasts are under the age of like 25 or so. It's a lot of people where drinking's still kind of novel. So doing this sort of thing is, to somebody who's 24, I think that a craft beer means a lot more than it would be to somebody who's as old as me or you, because to us it's a $10 beer. To them it's like this effervescent thing that I just don't see anymore at my age.
It's an experience. It's an experience. It's not just going to the bar and having a beer. I mean, it truly is an experience for the craft beer fan.
It is, and one thing I will say is that craft beer is definitely a different product than your typical Budweiser and stuff. Personally, I prefer your regular American beer, the Budweisers and stuff. I like them. I don't like them thick and stuff. My dad was always a big Warsteiner fan, and it was almost like you had to drink it with a spoon. But for each their own. And I'm sure they'll have a really, really successful event. And so hats off to Busch Gardens and best of luck to them. So Don, we're going to head down south again for this next segment, for this next article. So Universal's Epic Universe construction is picking up. So this is a park I'm really excited about. Like I've mentioned before, I've got a lot of friends that work for Universal, and they're to imagine being able to use the technology that Universal has developed over the past 10 or 15 years and start from scratch. I think that's just incredible. Reports from Orlando Park Guide saying that we're seeing vertical construction. There's track supports that are up for the Yoshi ride. That's in the Super Mario World section. And pieces of the track are laid out for the How to Train Your Dragons coaster. The intended opening date is still spring of 2025. Don, starting a park from scratch, it's funny because you look at all the parks that have opened, over the past 20 years. You've got like Hard Rock Park, failed. Freestyle Music Park, which is the reincarnation of Hard Rock Park, failed. You've got, is it Adventureland in Iowa? They were reporting low attendance. It's hard to open a park. It really is. And it's not always the fault of, the people that are opening it. Universal has already done it once in the past 10 years. They opened Volcano Bay. It was a much needed water park expansion. When it comes to opening a whole other gate, what kind of factors do you think played into making this kind of decision?
Well, location, number one, where you're at. I mean, that it's already proven to be successful in Central Florida, so that would play a big role in it. That you're why this is called the Universal's Epic Universe. I mean, you are in the theme park hotbed down there, so you have that chance there. But I mean, when you look at this, 750 acres, that's more than double just about the size of the Universal parks right now that they take up. So you're going to have a theme park, you're going to have an entertainment district, you're going to have hotels, you're going to have shops, restaurants. So this is going to be some kind of complex when it's open in 2025.
I agree. And before 2025, actually another article that I didn't take the time to cite is saying that they're predicting that one of the hotels that's on site can be considered a Epic Universe hotel may open a year beforehand. So, if you stayed in a hotel facing obviously for people like you and I, it would be interesting, but, a year out from opening, a park looks like a theme park, and it might be cool to see the construction actually going on from your balcony,
Oh, yeah. I mean, that would be, just like visiting a park for people like you and I and others. of our ilk, that would be just as exciting as going to a park as to seeing one coming to life, being built from the ground floor up.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that not just the fact that like let's strike out the last 15 or so years that you've been in the industry, but your time as an enthusiast as well as the different PR stunts that you had done over the past 30 years before that. But to me, I think what makes me unique as opposed to an average park visitor, besides a passion for the industry, of course, is that I'm always far more interested in why something happened and how something happened rather than what actually happened when it comes to the parks. So to me, it's like seeing that, okay, we're going to put these attractions here. I want to ride them. I'm excited to ride them. But why would you put How to Train Your Dragons? How does that work? How do you make that immersive? How do you predict how many people are going to show up? That's what's interesting to me. Did you feel the same way before you actually took a dive into the industry?
Oh, absolutely. I was always fascinated by, everything that went into building something, whether it was a new attraction, a new section, putting in a water park, whatever it may be, just the thought process that goes into that. So many talented people, are involved in these things, and how when you started from scratch and surveying the land, just the whole works. I mean, I was always as fascinated about that as I was the end product when you got to experience it.
Yeah, and what I think is funny is like with you and I are kind of the same with whether in discussions with each other or even like online forums and stuff. For me, like when a park does something and people don't understand it, because of my curiosity, I'm usually able to speculate. It's either this, or it's something that we don't know about. And I think that's like a really good basis for being able to justify a lot of the decisions. Sometimes it's greed. Sometimes they raise prices just because they can. But oftentimes it's because, why did they make the Halloween attraction a separate gate? Well, you can do crowd control that way. It might be more money. It may not. It's going to upset a lot of people. But maybe they were having problems, and this is a way to fix it, that sort of thing. All right. Well, Don, pick 6 went really quickly this time.
The name of Walt Disney World possibly, or Magic Bands getting introduced at a place that hasn't had it. So I mean, there's a lot of things that people are going to be talking about over the next several weeks and months.
Yeah, and as always, we welcome your feedback and we appreciate your support. We do want to continue to have guests on the show. We would love if you tweet at us attractions_GRP, or if most of you guys run into us out in town, let us know what you think about the 3-person format. If you thought it was too cluttered, or if you thought it was super exciting, or whatever, we'd really appreciate that feedback. And if you want to tweet at us, if you want to recommend any guests that you would recommend having on the show that you think would be interesting, that are major contributors or players in the theme park industry that can kind of just shoot the breeze and tell us what they got going on and how they do things and what we can learn from them, then we'd really appreciate that. So once again, our Twitter handle is @attractions_GRP. You can follow us on YouTube by searching for the Attractions Group Podcast, and you can find us on your favorite podcast app. So Don, what are your final words of wisdom for the evening when we're recording this?
Final words of wisdom, I think follow us, like we talked about at the top of the show, because you may have a chance to win some cool prizes. I'm gonna scale back a little bit on my treasure trove of amusement theme park memorabilia. So what better than to give it away to people that would appreciate having some of those things that I have.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure that they really appreciate that. So Don, once again, thank you for co-hosting with me this fine evening. As of the time of this recording, we're going to find out what Dollywood's announcing tomorrow. So we're very excited about that. I'm sure that'll make the pick 6. It is announcement season, so we're going to see a lot of that and a lot of analysis as to why they made these decisions. Are they good? Are they bad? And, how do they get from point A to point B? So very exciting shows coming up over the next several months. So again, I'm Ryan Suhr. I'm with Don Helbig. Everybody have a great day.